Good morning, Mario, and good morning, Switch fans. It's an awesome episode today because we are going to put the metal to the pedal and determine the top 10 Switch games of the year. I considered doing 2021 games for 2021 since there's like 7,000 on Switch. I thought I could get there, but that video probably would have exceeded YouTube's upload timer limit. So anyhow, what's going on, everybody? It's Zach from SwitchForce. Hope you're all having a fantastic day. Hit that like button if you enjoy these videos, and make sure to let me know in the comments down below what your top games for Switch were in 2021. And if you agree or disagree with my list, any that you think, no, Zach, you got it totally wrong, I want you to tell me. All in all, I think 2021 was a pretty strong year for Switch. In hindsight, it wasn't my favorite year for Switch, but I think they really spread their needles quite wide and touched on a lot of different genres. They brought back franchises that some didn't expect sequels for, like new Pokemon Snap and Metroid Dread. They touched on old favorites like Pokemon and Mario Party, and they did some interesting new things as well. Plus, the third-party support was strong, especially in the graphics and performance port department. Really delicious titles hitting our system alongside an OLED that brought no Pro, but honestly a very promising screen that plays so much better. I think the experience is so great in portable mode. That lovely OLED is just absolutely delicious to look at. Now, do remember, for my list, it has to be games that I played, and I couldn't play everything. There were some things I dabbled in, some things that I missed, some things that I skipped, and some that just didn't sit right with me. But here is my list, and we'll kick it off at number 10 with a really recent release, Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon. This one goes to the yacht, all right? The yacht and the club and the games, they did it again, and they became an even better developer and publisher than before because they tried a new genre with their titular character and proved that they can kind of do anything with Shovel Knight. Pocket Dungeon is a match 3, it's a roguelite, it's a dungeon game, it's a puzzler. All of it is true, and yet it has its own secret sauce to make it unique. I think the strongest element of Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon is that they found a way to make the runs quick. It's a snappy game, all right? It's a puzzle game that moves at breakneck speed, but not too fast that you can't get the job done. And right when you think you've got it really mastered, then they throw a boss battle in that just kind of throws you for a loop, and you might lose and have to do it a couple of times. Smart decisions to allow you to jump back into the fray quite fast and to skip levels if you want to get further along. There's a bunch of different playable characters, interesting unlockables, purchasable things that can help your progress in the rounds, and a bunch of really cool enemies that seem overwhelming at first, but then you get to know them, become friendly with them, and say, hey, I know how to beat you. And you have to accept it. But I thoroughly enjoyed my many hours playing through the adventure, and it's a unique concept that, hey, if they do decide to drop DLC, which it sounds like they will, I'm ready. Number 9 is Warioware Get It Together. I love that Wario was able to get it together with his Warioware crew and bring an adventure to Nintendo Switch. It was one that was rumored and doubted and confirmed, and then came out at a pretty cool price point and brought together co-op play for the first time in the main mode minigames. Now, I didn't really do much co-op, but I found the single player adventure to be a short but exciting romp. I like controlling the different characters and how this time around they each had their own unique power-up and were able to pursue the goal in a unique way. I know some didn't like that and found that some of the characters were a lot better than others, and that is absolutely true. But part of the appeal was that you had to get the job done with whoever showed up, and I thought that was really nifty. I do wish there was always more content here, and that's kind of the rub with Warioware. If you're just playing through the campaign, you burn it quite quickly. It's a high score chase, it's a co-op affair, and luckily it wasn't $60. But I did have a lot of fun with Warioware, and for me, as a lifelong gamer, someone that's been doing this for decades and doing this kind of for a job for over a decade now, fun is a premium that I really have learned to appreciate. And sometimes being more fun than good, hey, that ends up getting you on my list. Number 8 is a game that I wish was so much higher. Little Nightmares was an absolute phenomenal indie experience, one of my favorites of the last decade. It did something just so eerie. It hit the mood just right, a game full of vibes and creepy Muppets gone completely wrong. Those puppet chases through some of the spooky interiors of that ship in the original title were absolutely memorable, and I was beyond thrilled to see that a sequel was greenlit and came out early this year. Now, Little Nightmares 2 is still a really good game, and that's why it earned the 8th spot on my list, but I was hoping for more. So this is a bit of a weird one to review because I really enjoyed it. It still has that creepy vibe, this one expanded and tried to do more, tackling different locales and deeper gameplay and multiple characters. And while I do appreciate the bigger scope and scale and the more variety within the puzzles and the lands that you explore, I think something about the super focused nature of the first game made it feel like more of one whole complete experience. I think I prefer the first game despite being simpler, older, less pretty, less visual flair. I think there's, some real eeriness to the first time in that awkward world. Now, don't get me wrong, the hospital level of Little Nightmares 2 is Freaky Friday for sure, and I definitely enjoyed some of the creepy cretins trying to caress my head and smother my breath. Now, the ending is kind of interesting. It has it's got a twist. I won't say any more in case you haven't experienced this package, because both games still combine together to form one of the coolest indie original adventures in quite a long time. I highly recommend playing both of them. I think the edge goes to LN1 for me just because it was the first. It's the same way that BioShock 1 is not the best BioShock, and yet it's the one that I have the fondest memories of because it's where I first set foot into Rapture and that ridiculously cool world. Little Nightmares is the same, and 2 is more of the same, expanded, just not necessarily totally evolved. That's okay though, it does own the number 8 spot for 2021. Number 7 is a wild card, and I'm throwing down my special move to put Animal Crossing New Horizons 2.0 and Happy Home Paradise in the number 7 spot. All right, this DLC was absolutely massive, and at a time where Animal Crossing seemed like it was done, doom and gloom had begun to set in, and Nintendo said, we got a special direct, and everyone thought it was just Brewster. And I was like, I think they're gonna go all out, and oh my goodness gracious, they brought the whole carnival to our Switches. They brought back every character, and they brought back so many interesting ideas while touching on new ones as well. Brewster and Cap'n, and bringing in the Harv's Island upgrade, even throwing Tortimer back into the mix. Plus, Happy Home Paradise is a huge DLC that twists the Animal Crossing formula, focuses on design, and yet still brings back interesting ideas that you can incorporate into your own island. It was a phenomenal way to resurrect a community and a game that took the world by storm and saved some people's entire 2020. Yes, this game is nearly 2 full years old, but I feel like it had such a resurgence and such a wonderful, memorable moment for myself and all the other fans out there to be like, whoa, the game is back, the community is back, the positivity, the good vibes, all the fun that drummed up, it returned. And that was one of the coolest gaming moments of my life, and I have to include it on the list. It was one of the most fun things I played in 2021, and the new content allows it, by close decision of the jury in my head, to appear on this list. Let's follow that up with number 6 and the best darn third-party game of 2021 on Switch, and maybe the best third-party game on all of Nintendo Switch. Monster Hunter Rise is phenomenal, jam-packed with content, and they're bringing a huge expansion next summer. So this game has longevity, and it has a lot of light in terms of enjoyment by yourself, enjoyment with others, and awesome encounters with beautiful monsters performing and looking so fantastic on our hybrid system. I'll be honest and say that I didn't get into Monster Hunter Rise as much as I wanted to. This was a hard year for me gaming-wise. I didn't find it as enjoyable as I normally do. A lot of life changes happening, a lot of things going on behind the scenes, and Monster Hunter Rise came out at a very weird time for me. Had it arrived in, say, September, I think I would have gotten much more mileage out of this cartridge, but I still appreciate and understand how important of a game this is and how quality of a game it is as well. Had I put more time in, this easily could have moved into my top 3, but because I had such limited action with the experience, I'm going to leave it at number 6. I know for a lot of people this would track much higher, I know it would chart near the tippy top, but for me, it has to sit there. Despite playing well, looking fantastic, and impressing the heck out of me every time I picked it up, it just didn't pan out. Maybe 2022 and Sunbreak, I'll be back in it full on, but for now, it sits right around the middle of my 2021 list. Now things are about to get wild. My top 5 will surprise you. All right, number 5 for me is There Is No Game, Wrong Dimension. An absolutely genius indie title. This one, you may never have heard of it. It actually was featured in an indie world, and it is a must buy. Okay, There Is No Game is about playing a game, but you're on top of the game. And I don't mean literally, I mean you're playing all these different levels within the game and working with the AI trying to uncover what is going on. It's a cerebral experience, but it's still so much fun because the focus is on playing these different genres of games and kind of breaking the game as you go. So you'll play a top-down Zelda type adventure, but you really got to manipulate the system to make progress the way you need to make progress. And eventually, it's completely fourth wall breaking, and the end of the game is beyond ridiculous. And I mean that in the best way possible. They take risks and do things that no other game ever has done. It's completely original, and that is why it's successful. It was a game that really hit hard at a time when I needed a game to be really engrossing and fun, and it kind of was my foray back into loving playing games in early 2021, and I had an absolute blast. It's short, it's digestible, and it's really charming. It's totally worth it in every way. It's a perfect game to play on the go, and you absolutely need to play There Is No Game Wrong Dimension on Switch. Number 4 is Death's Door. Now, I'll be honest, I played Death's Door on another platform, but it made its way to Switch towards the very end of the year, and thank goodness gracious, because this original Xbox title is absolutely awesome. All right, it takes kind of the Dark Souls Zelda formula, mixes them together, and comes out with something that doesn't feel completely unique, but yet just it feels very comfy, very cozy, right at home, and ridiculously fun, good to look at, and has some interesting combat ideas that culminate in absolutely insane final boss fights. I love Death's Door. Again, these bite-sized games seem to be what I was most into in 2021, and I think the short hour package that's provided here will keep you glued to the controller and screen the whole way through. It's great in the fingers, it controls absolutely well, gameplay is king, Nintendo always says. And yet the concept, right, the character, this crow in this world where they're trying to deal with death and the dead and the doors and all of the murky elements that make their way towards the surface as you progress, it's a super fun time. I think it gets a bad rap for being too challenging, and yet I didn't find the game problematic at all. I really didn't die until I reached the final boss, and unlike Dark Souls, this isn't a game that punishes you for dying. You don't really lose much progress, and even though there is a soul-type system to level up, it doesn't factor in anywhere near as heavily as the other Souls-like we've seen in recent years. And I want to veer the conversation more towards Zelda, actually, because I feel like that game is more akin to the true spirit of this title. And that is what I love, that I felt like I was playing a modern 2021 top-down Zelda, not from Nintendo, with more engaging combat, stunning visuals, and just a super interesting world. Do yourself a favor. If you've ever liked Zelda, especially in its more original incarnation, Death's Door is delightful, and it's not as hard as people say, but it does have rewarding mechanics. It gives you a small set of abilities, but they're all really impactful in terms of combat and in terms of environmental puzzle-solving navigation. There's arenas, there's light puzzle solving, there's an interesting story, there's gorgeous levels, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's the near perfect indie package. Absolutely love it. It's almost a 10 out of 10 for me, and that is why it earns the number 4 spot. Now, after drooling over number 4, I bet you're curious what my number 3 is. And somehow number 3 is an even more incredible indie title. This one hit me at the heart. I don't know, it absolutely appealed to me in a way that I didn't see coming. And that's why number 3 is Toem. Toem is a truly tremendous title, and an out Pokemon snapped, new Pokemon Snap. All right, you have a camera, black and white levels, and you're solving little puzzles and side quests. The premise is insanely simple. This game is just brilliant. It is beautiful in both the way of the eye and the way of the ear. It's got simple gameplay, but charming as all heck. It uniquely blends mechanics in a way that give you vibes of picture taking, collecting, like Pokemon almost, but you're collecting like the puzzles. Obsessive completion where you want to get 100% just because the areas are all so fun. And you want to help the people with their problems. And it wasn't a game that hit my heart because like, oh, the story's so emotional. It just hit my heart because it was like, people made this. Like people had this idea, they created this, and I get to play it and enjoy it. And there was just something about that connection, even though I don't know the developer, never spoke to them. I felt like, man, like these people did something extraordinary and I'm better off for experiencing it. It truly was a revelation for me, and it's one of my favorite indies ever on Nintendo Switch. Heck, if it wasn't for the top 2 titles being so darn awesome from first-party Nintendo, there was a part of me that considered being a wild stallion and throwing Toem on top of the list. This one is a quicker adventure than anything else on my list, and I think my total runtime was around 3 hours, which sounds just bite-sized at best, but I'm telling you, what a 3 hours it was. This one was a world that I wanted to dive into every night before bed. Love this one. And hey, if you're looking for something that just really made a difference for me, definitely give it a look. My number 3 of the year. We've made it to the top 2, and this was honestly tough for me to tussle with. Which one would I put over the top? But when I thought about it, it ended up the right way. Number 2 for 2021 is Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury. And honestly, it's Bowser's Fury that's pulling much of that weight. Now, don't get me wrong, Super Mario 3D World is a wonderful game. Absolutely fantastic and probably way too overlooked because of the Wii U and its original release. Here, though, it's Bowser's Fury that stands strong for me as a really good look into the future of Mario. Look, I love Mario Odyssey, and that is the real 3D Mario on Nintendo Switch. It was made specifically for the system, but Bowser's Fury was as well, and it builds on one of my favorite Mario games of recent memory, swapping out Cappy for open world and bringing along Bowser Jr. as a cooperative partner that can be adjusted to help you or kind of just stand by. I thought the challenges within the open lake world were awesome, and it felt like the perfect way to incorporate Mario into the modern era. Look, we know that all Nintendo's mainstays are trying to make moves into a more futuristic way of play. We saw it start off with Breath of the Wild, and almost every franchise since has made some giant strides, and Pokemon's gonna do it again in January. Bowser's Fury was that stride for Mario, and yet it felt very much in their wheelhouse. It used their creativity, their tight controls, and their insane aptitude for delivering awesome characters, bringing Super Saiyan Mario in his cat form and returning one of the coolest power-ups we've ever seen. Cat Mario, Cat Bowser, amazing battles, and this unique boss system that is unlike anything we've seen, coupled with open world that, yes, just feels like Mario levels strung together. It's honestly the perfect yin-yang for 3D World, which is bite-sized by design. Overworld map takes you from level to level to level. One of the knocks on the game is that it does feel segmented, but that's one of the things I loved. And now with Bowser's Fury, it flips it and it's completely all connected, and the levels are just scattered amongst one interconnected domain. It really gives me high hopes for what they do next. Platforming prowess at its absolute purest form. I loved every second of Bowser's Fury, and it has me geeked for whatever that team does next. They are geniuses of their work, masters of their craft, and I love the direction they're taking my main man, Mario. You know what that means, the number 1 title. And what other game could it be than the return of the legendary bounty hunter? Samus Aran is back in Metroid Dread after over a decade of prepping and planning. They return to deliver a true 2D Metroid that I think is my favorite controlling 2D game of all time. What a wonderful, crazy cool experience, and the Emmy robots just absolutely sweeten the pot. They delivered the perfect new twist for this formula, and they made it much more harrowing than it would have been elsewise. I know some people found the Emmy to be obnoxious and difficult, but I actually liked the fact that they manipulated the gameplay, switched things up, and adjusted the pace. Otherwise, Metroid is just about moving quickly and using your traversal to navigate the spaces in as fast a fashion as you can, but the Emmy robots require you to slow down. And it's that ebb and flow that make things feel so engaging and interesting, and you always want to do one more door, one more power-up. The pacing of this game is just phenomenal, always rewarding you and yet making everything feel kind of monumental. The different levels, the way it's interconnected, the AI guiding you through, and the boss battles that are tried and true. I love them so much. It is a game that requires prowess of the hands and the mind, and there was one place that probably everyone got stuck. I did too, but again, I don't think this game is too difficult. I think it just doesn't hold your hand, and that's one of the things I love. Metroid is an old game done in a new way, and that felt really great. It doesn't feel like an old game with modern graphics. It feels like they looked back so that they could build for the future. They absolutely hit a home run, and it's so good to see the Metroid franchise reappear in such a strong way. And it wasn't even Prime 4, it was Dread, a 2D title. And for a 2D title to take the top spot on my list in 2021 is all the more impressive. I know a game is a game is a game, but look, they had limited dimensions, and they still delivered something that felt out of this world. The power curve is also absolutely supreme. The way you start off a little slow, and then ramp up, and by the end you're flying through, acquiring moves and just decimating your opponents. There's such a satisfaction to a ramp up like that, where things that were previously challenging become a cakewalk, and then you're met with the final boss, which not a cakewalk for me. And it's a gorgeous game. There's some truly awe-inspiring moments, some pullback scenes where it zooms out and you're just like, wow, Nintendo did this? And they did do this. They can do single-player games so well. Luigi's Mansion 3 and Metroid Dread to me prove just different tones that Nintendo is capable of achieving in the modern era. And the Switch is a system that means Mario and Co. can do much more than what we've expected from them in the past. I feel like this game is the perfect blend of past, present, and future. And again, it's an adventure that isn't all that long. I kind of wish there would have been one or two more areas because I didn't want my time with the game to end. And if there's any game on this list to deserve DLC, I'd love to see some sort of single player expansion to Metroid Dread. Doubtful, but it would be amazing because that combat is so crisp and that traversal is truly second to none. The boss battles are exciting and the way it wraps together the Metroid story I felt was perfect. Metroid Dread, nearly perfect. And it wins my game of the year on Nintendo Switch in 2021, the top title out of all of them. And I want to know what you think in the comments down below. Let me know your favorite games of 2021 on Switch. And if you have any bones to pick with me and my list, I'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, everybody, thank you so much for watching. I love you all so very much and I appreciate your support. So make sure you're staying safe, staying healthy, staying happy, staying positive out there. We had a fantastic 2021. And look, this list was cool. I just know next year's list is going to be an absolute crazy one. There are so many huge titles that we already know about. And then the surprise is, it's poised to be the best year yet. So 2021 in the books. Those are my top 10. What do you think? I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, everybody. Thanks again. SwitchForce out.